When shadows collide, the rain hammered against the warehouse windows like bullets, each drop echoing through the cavernous space where Maya Reeves crouched behind a stack of shipping crates. Her hands shook as she pressed the phone to her ear, listening to the deadline. 3 years of undercover work, 3 years of building trust with the Torino crime family, and now her cover was blown. "They know," she whispered to herself, tasting copper in her mouth from where she'd bitten her tongue during the escape. Blood trickled down her split lip, mixing with rainwater that had soaked through her leather jacket. The warehouse door exploded, open with a crash that made her heart skip. Heavy footsteps echoed across the concrete floor, deliberate and unhurried. Maya held her breath, pressing deeper into the shadows between the crates, her service weapon slick with sweat in her grip. "I know you're in here, Detective Reeves." The voice was smooth, almost gentle, with just a hint of an accent she couldn't place. "My name is Adrian Cross. I'm not here to hurt you." Maya's blood ran cold. She'd heard that name whispered in the darkest corners of the criminal underworld. Adrian Cross, the ghost who moved money for cartels, terrorists, and Danione, willing to pay his price. The man who'd never been photographed, never been caught, never left witnesses. "I have a proposition for you," Adrian continued, his footsteps moving closer. "The people hunting you tonight, they're hunting me too. Seems we have a common enemy." Against every instinct screaming in her head, Maya found herself listening. His voice carried something she hadn't expected. Exhaustion, pain, the same bone-deep weariness that had been eating at her for months. "Show yourself," she called out, surprised by how steady her own voice sounded. "Hands where I can see them." Soft chuckle echoed through the darkness. "Fair enough." He stepped into the pale light streaming through the grimy windows, and Maya's breath caught in her throat. Adrian Cross wasn't the monster she'd imagined. He was younger than she'd expected. Maybe early 30s, with dark hair dampened by rain and eyes that held too many secrets. A thin scar ran from his left temple, too. His jaw and his expensive suit was torn at the shoulder, dark stains spreading across the fabric. "You're bleeding," Maya said before she could stop herself. "Are you?" His gaze fixed on her split lip with an intensity that made her stomach flutter. "We don't have long. Moreno's men are maybe 10 minutes behind me. After that, we're both dead." The warehouse lights suddenly blazed to life, flooding the space with harsh fluorescent glare. Maya squinted, raising her weapon, but Adrian didn't move. Instead, he slowly reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "Inside that envelope is everything you need to bring down Vincent Torino," he said quietly. "Records, offshore accounts, locations of safe houses. Everything your investigation has been missing for 3 years. Why?" Maya's voice cracked. "Why would you help me?" Adrian's eyes met hers across the distance, and for a moment she saw, past the carefully constructed facade, to something raw and desperate underneath. "Because Vincent Torino killed the only person I ever loved. And I've spent 2 years planning my revenge." The sound of car engines roared to life outside, growing closer. Adrian tossed the envelope toward her feet, and Maya watched it slide across the concrete, stopping just inches from her boots. "Take it or leave it, Detective. But decide now." Maya stared at the envelope, then back at Adrian's face. Every rule of law enforcement, every principle she'd sworn to uphold, told her to arrest him on the spot, but the rational part of her mind was screaming a different message. This might be her only chance to survive the night. The warehouse doors burst open again, and muzzle flashes lit up the darkness like deadly fireworks. "Blood and choices," Maya dove for the envelope as bullets shredded the air where she'd been standing. Adrian moved like liquid shadow, producing a pistol from somewhere beneath his jacket and returning fire with mechanical precision. The acrid smell of gunpowder filled her nostrils as she rolled behind a concrete pillar, clutching the manila folder against her chest. "This way." Adrian's voice cut through the chaos. He was moving toward a service door at the back of the warehouse, his movements fluid despite the blood soaking through his shirt. Maya made a split-second decision that would haunt her forever. Instead of calling for backup, instead of following protocol, she ran toward the man every law enforcement agency in the world wanted to capture. They burst through the service door into an alley thick with the smell of rotting garbage and stagnant water. Adrian's motorcycle waited in the shadows, black as midnight and built for speed. "Dawn," he commanded, already swinging his leg over. "The seat, I can't," Maya breathed, but her feet were already carrying her forward. "I'm a federal agent. I can't just—" "You can die a federal agent, or you can live as something else entirely." Adrian's eyes burned into hers. "Choose now." The warehouse door exploded outward behind them. Maya heard Vincent Torino's voice screaming orders in rapid Italian, heard the click of weapons being loaded. She climbed onto the motorcycle behind Adrian, her arms encircling his waist as the engine roared to life. They tore through the narrow alley and onto the rain-slick streets, the city blurring past in streaks of neon and shadow. Maya pressed her face against Adrian's back, feeling his heart hammer against her cheek. The warmth of his body cut through the cold night air, and she tried to ignore how right it felt to hold him. 20 minutes later, they stood in the living room of a safe house overlooking the harbor. Maya's hands trembled as she opened the envelope, spreading documents across a coffee table that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Adrian moved through the apartment like he owned it, checking locks, closing blinds, his wounded shoulder, leaving dark smears on everything he touched. "Jesus," Maya whispered, studying bank records that showed millions flowing through offshore accounts. "This is enough to put Torino away for life. It's enough to put half the Eastern Seaboard's crime families away for life," Adrian corrected, collapsing into a leather chair with a grunt of pain. "The question is, what are you willing to do with it?" Maya looked up from the documents to find him watching her with those impossibly dark eyes. In the apartment's soft lighting, she could see the exhaustion etched into every line of his face, the way his fingers shook slightly as he pressed them against his wounded shoulder. "I need to call this in," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. "To whom?" Adrian's laugh was bitter. "Detective Martinez, who's been feeding information to Torino for 6 months. Or maybe Agent Peterson, who's been skimming money from evidence lockups." Maya's blood turned to ice. "How do you—" "Because I've been watching, Maya. Waiting. Planning." Adrian leaned forward, his intensity filling the space between them. "The corruption goes deeper than you know. Torino owns judges, prosecutors, half the police force. If you hand this evidence over through normal channels, it'll disappear by morning, and we'll both be dead by nightfall." The weight of his words settled over her like a funeral shroud. Maya sank onto the couch across from him, the enormity of her situation finally hitting her. Her career was over. Her life as she knew it was over. Everything she'd worked for, everything she'd believed in, was burning down around her. "There's another way," Adrian said softly. "We take him down ourselves. Outside the system, make sure he pays for what he's done." "That's not justice," Maya whispered. "That's revenge. Sometimes they're the same thing." Adrian stood slowly, crossing to where she sat. He knelt in front of her, and Maya caught the scent of his cologne mixed with gunpowder and blood. When he reached out to touch her face, she should have pulled away. Instead, she found herself leaning into his palm. "The woman Torino killed," he said quietly. "Her name was Alina. She was a social worker, trying to help kids get out of the system. Torino had her murdered because she was asking too many questions about his money laundering operation through children's charities." Maya saw her own pain reflected in his eyes, the same hollow ache that came from losing everything that mattered. "She was my sister," Adrian whispered. The confession hit Maya like a physical blow. She understood now why he'd been hunting Torino, why he'd thrown away a lucrative criminal career for this single-minded pursuit of vengeance. She understood because she'd made the same choice the night her partner had been gunned down in an alley 3 years ago. "We do this my way," Maya said finally, her voice steady despite the chaos in her mind. "No innocent casualties, no unnecessary violence." Adrian's smile was sharp as a blade. "Deal." But as he leaned closer, close enough that she could count the gold flecks in his dark eyes, Maya didn't see the satellite phone hidden behind the couch cushions. Didn't see the incoming message that would change everything. Package delivered. Target acquired. Phase 2 approved. Trust in ashes. Maya woke to the sound of Adrian's voice drifting from the kitchen, low and urgent. Morning light filtered through the blinds, casting prison bar shadows across the hardwood floor. She'd fallen asleep on the couch, still clutching the evidence files, and her neck ached from the awkward position. She moved silently toward the kitchen, every instinct from her undercover training screaming that something was wrong. Adrian stood with his back to her, phone pressed to his ear, his voice barely above a whisper. "The target is secured." "Ah, she has the files." "No, she doesn't suspect anything yet." Maya's heart stopped. She pressed herself against the wall, fighting the nausea that rose in her throat as Adrian continued. 24 hours, then. We move to extraction. Make sure the cleanup team is ready. I don't want any loose ends." The phone clicked off. Maya forced herself to breathe, to think. To become the federal agent she'd trained to be instead of the woman who'd started to trust the man in the next room. She slipped back to the couch, arranging herself as if she'd just woken up. "Good morning, Adrian," said a moment later, carrying 2 cups of coffee. Smile was warm, genuine, and it made Maya want to scream. "Morning." She accepted the coffee, with steady hands studying his face for any sign of deception. "Sleep well." "Better than I have in months." Adrian settled beside her on the couch, close enough that she could smell his soap and see the way his dark hair curled slightly at his collar. "I was thinking we should move against Torino tonight. Hit him while he's still looking for us." Maya nodded, playing along while her mind raced. What did you have in mind? For the next hour, Adrian outlined a plan that was brilliant in its simplicity. They would intercept Torino at his weekly meeting with the Harbor Commission, use the MC evidence to force a confession, and broadcast it live to ensure the truth couldn't be buried. It was exactly the kind of plan Maya would have suggested herself, which made her certain it was a lie. "I need to make a call," she said when he finished. "Check in with a contact who might be able to help." Adrian's eyes sharpened for just a moment before his expression smoothed back to concern. "Be careful who you trust, Maya. The corruption goes deeper than either of us knows." Maya stepped onto the apartment's small balcony, phone in hand, and dialed a number she'd memorized but never used. It rang 3 times before a gravelly voice answered. "Deputy Director Harrison. Sir, this is Agent Reeves. I need an immediate extraction and witness protection. I have intelligence on Vincent Torino's organization, but I believe I've been compromised." There was a long pause. "Agent Reeves, according to our records, you died in a warehouse fire last night, along with suspected money launderer Adrian Cross." Maya's legs nearly gave out. "Sir, that's not. We recovered 2 bodies from the scene. Dental records confirmed. I'm looking at the report right now." The phone slipped from Maya's nerveless fingers, clattering against the balcony railing. Through the sliding glass door, she could see Adrian watching her with an expression of polite concern. But there was something else there now, something cold and calculating that she'd missed before. She retrieved the phone with shaking hands. "Sir, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Adrian Cross is alive, and I believe he's working with—" The line went dead. Maya turned to find Adrian standing in the doorway, no longer bothering to hide the predator behind his concerned facade. "Figured it out faster than I expected," he said conversationally. "I was hoping for at least another few hours." "Who are you really?" Maya's voice came out steadier than she felt. "I told you the truth about Alina. She was my sister, and Torino did have her killed." Adrian stepped closer, and Maya noticed he was favoring his uninjured side, positioning himself between her and the only exit. "What I didn't tell you is that I work for people who make Vincent Torino look like a choir boy." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. "Not hunting Torino for revenge. You're eliminating competition." "Very good, detective. My employers want Torino's territory, his connections, his operations. But they needed someone on the inside to gather intelligence first. You've been extremely helpful," Maya thought about. The evidence files, now useless, since they'd been compiled by the enemy. Thought about her career, her life, her identity, all sacrificed for nothing. But mostly she thought about how she'd started to care for the man standing in front of her, and how completely he'd played her. "The warehouse," she whispered. "It was all staged, down to the last bullet. I must say you made it quite convincing when you chose to trust me." Adrian's smile was genuinely admiring. I almost felt guilty about deceiving you. Almost. I'm very good at my job, Maya. Feeling guilt would be a liability. Maya's hand moved slowly toward the gun holstered at her back, but Adrian was all ready. Shaking his head, I wouldn't. My people have your apartment surrounded, your bank accounts frozen, your identity erased. As far as the world is concerned, Agent Maya Reeves died last night in a warehouse fire. But I'm prepared to offer you a choice. Let me guess. Work for your employers or die? Work with me, Adrian corrected, and for a moment his mask slipped, revealing something raw and desperate underneath. I meant what I said about Alina. And despite everything, I meant what I said about feeling something for you. The satellite phone on the coffee table buzzed with an incoming message. Adrian glanced at it, and his expression hardened. Time's up, he said quietly. What's it going to be, Maya? The price of betrayal, I'll do it, Maya said, the words tasting like poison on her tongue. I'll work with you. Adrian's shoulders relaxed slightly, but his eyes remained watchful. Smart choice. My employers value loyalty above all else, but they reward it generously. Maya nodded, playing the part of the defeated agent while her mind raced through possibilities. She needed to buy time, needed to find a way out of this nightmare. She needed to understand why Adrian's confession about Alina had felt so genuine when everything else was a lie. What happened to her? Maya asked quietly. Your sister. Tell me the real story. Adrian's expression shifted, vulnerability flickering across his features like a candle flame in the wind. Alina was trying to expose a human trafficking ring. Running through the children's charities, she had documents, witnesses, everything needed to bring them down. And Torino was involved? Torino was small time compared to who was really running it. Adrian moved to the window, staring out at the harbor where cargo ships moved like shadows through the morning fog. My employers have been trafficking children through those charities for years. Alina stumbled onto something she was never supposed to see. Maya felt ice form in her veins. You're working for the people who killed your sister? I'm working to destroy them from the inside. Adrian turned back to face her, and Maya saw the truth in his eyes at last. Everything I've told you about revenge was real. Maya, I've spent 2 years building trust with these monsters, becoming someone they rely on, all so I could tear their organization apart. The satellite phone buzzed again, more insistently this time. Adrian glanced at it and cursed under his breath. They want proof of your compliance, he said grimly. They want you to eliminate Vincent Torino tonight. What? Maya's carefully maintained composure cracked. I won't murder someone in cold blood. If you don't, they'll know you're not really turned. I'll kill us both and find another way. To take out Torino, the apartment's front door exploded inward with a crash that shook the walls. Black-clad figures poured through the opening, assault rifles trained on both Maya and Adrian. The leader, a woman with silver hair and eyes like winter, stepped forward. Mr. Cross, she said in accented English. I was beginning to wonder if you'd gone soft. Director Volkov. Adrian's voice was perfectly controlled, but Maya could see the tension coiled in every muscle. This is unexpected, is it? You were supposed to deliver the federal agent to us 12 hours ago. Instead, you're having coffee and heart-to-heart conversations. Volkov's gaze shifted to Maya, studying her like a specimen under glass. Agent Reeves, I presume? Maya said nothing, calculating distances and angles. There's 5 armed operatives, all positioned to prevent any chance of escape. Balcony was 20 stories up. The kitchen knives were too far away. Her weapon was still holstered, but she'd never reach it in time. Cat got your tongue? Volkov smiled, revealing teeth that were too white, too perfect. No matter. Actions speak louder than words. She gestured to one of her operatives, who stepped forward carrying a leather briefcase. Inside, nestled in foam padding, was a sniper rifle that Maya recognized from her weapons training. Vincent Torino will be having lunch at Pier 7 in exactly 3 hours, Volkov continued. You will take position on the adjacent building and eliminate him. Mr. Cross will observe to ensure you follow through. And if I refuse? Maya asked. Volkov pulled out a tablet and showed Maya a live video feed. A young woman sat tied to a chair. In what looked like a warehouse, fear etched across her face. Maya's heart clenched as she recognized her younger sister, Jessica. "Your sister is quite lovely," Volkov said conversationally. "She has your eyes. It would be a shame if something were to happen to them." Maya's world tilted sideways. Jessica was supposed to be safe, protected by witness relocation after Maya's. Cover was blown, but Volkov's people had found her anyway. "You have 1 hour to get into position," Volkov continued. "If Torino is not dead by 2 p.m., your sister will be. If you attempt to warn him or contact law enforcement, she will be tortured before she dies. Are we clear?" Maya nodded, not trusting her voice. "Excellent." Volkov turned to Adrian. "Ensure she follows through, Mr. Cross. Your own sister's death will seem merciful compared to what we'll do to you if you fail us again." The operatives filed out as quickly as they'd arrived, leaving Maya and Adrian alone with the rifle and the weight of impossible choices. "There has to be another way," Maya whispered. Adrian was already moving, gathering equipment with practiced efficiency. "There is, but you're not going to like it. Tell me." Adrian stopped, meeting her eyes across the room. "I saved Jessica, and you kill me instead of Torino." "What?" "My death breaks the chain of command, without me feeding them intelligence." Volkov's operation falls apart. "Torino lives to fight another day, your sister goes free, and you disappear into witness protection." Maya stared at him, seeing the resolve in his face, the acceptance of his own sacrifice. "There has to be another way." "There isn't." Adrian moved to her, taking her hands in his. "I've been dead inside since Elena was murdered. At least this way, my death means something." The satellite phone buzzed one final time. A message appeared on the screen. "Package extracted. Phase 3 initiated. Eliminate all witnesses." Adrian looked at the message and went very still. "Maya, we have a problem. They never intended to let either of us survive this." The warehouse at Pier 7 reeked of motor oil and rotting fish. Maya crouched behind a stack of shipping containers, the sniper rifle assembled and ready beside her. Through her scope, she could see Vincent Torino's black sedan pulling up to the restaurant across the harbor. In exactly 15 minutes, she was supposed to end his life. Contact established. Adrian's voice crackled through her earpiece. "Jessica is in the northwest corner of the building, 2nd floor.
Us.
For guards. But I can handle them." Maya pressed her finger to the earpiece. "Adrian, once you move on the guards, Volkov will know we're not following orders. They'll kill you. I know." His voice was calm, resigned. "Maya, there's something else. The trafficking ring Elena discovered. It's bigger than just Volkov's. Organization Torino's been trying to expose it to. He's not the monster we thought." Maya's finger hovered over the trigger as Torino stepped out of his sedan. Through the scope, she could see he was carrying a briefcase and he kept checking his watch nervously. "He was afraid Torino's meeting someone," Maya whispered. "Someone he doesn't trust." The Harbor Commission meeting was a setup, Adrian realized. Volkov's people are using you to eliminate the one person who could bring down their trafficking network. A black van pulled up behind Torino's sedan. Maya watched through her scope as Volkov herself stepped out, flanked by 2 operatives. Torino's body language changed instantly, becoming defensive, trapped. "They're going to kill him anyway," Maya breathed. The assassination was just cover. They want it to look like a long-range hit so no one investigates too closely. "Maya, you have to take the shot now. Not at Torino, at Volkov. It's the only way to save both Torino and Jessica." Maya swung the rifle toward the black van, centering Volkov in her crosshairs. But as her finger tightened on the trigger, she heard the whine of helicopter rotors overhead. 3 black helicopters descended toward the warehouse where Adrian was attempting to rescue Jessica. "Adrian, get out of there." "It's too late. They're already inside." Maya heard the sound of gunfire. Adrian's sharp intake of breath, the crash of something heavy falling. Then silence. Adrian. Maya watched helplessly as Volkov pulled a pistol and pressed it against Torino's head. In 90 seconds, both Torino and Jessica would be dead, and Adrian's sacrifice would mean nothing. She made a choice that went against everything she'd been trained to do. Maya abandoned the sniper rifle and ran, sprinting across the pier toward Torino's location. She burst into the meeting area just as Volkov was demanding the location of Torino's evidence files. "Federal agent." Maya screamed, drawing her sidearm. "Drop your weapons!" Volkov spun toward her, surprise flickering across her face. "Reeves, how disappointing. I'd hoped you were smarter than this." "Vincent Torino is under federal protection," Maya lied smoothly. "This entire pier is surrounded." It was a desperate bluff, but it worked long enough for Torino to break free and dive behind his sedan. Maya and Volkov's operatives exchanged gunfire across the narrow pier, bullets sparking off metal containers and concrete barriers. "You can't save everyone, Agent," Volkov called out during a lull in the fighting. "Your sister dies in 60 seconds, whether you surrender or not." Maya's heart hammered against her ribs as she counted rounds, calculated angles, prepared to make the same sacrifice Adrian had offered. But then she heard the most beautiful sound in the world, sirens, growing closer by the second. The cavalry had arrived, but not from any agency Maya recognized. The vehicles that roared onto the pier bore the markings of the International Crimes Tribunal, and the tactical team that deployed moved with military precision. "Director Volkov," a voice boomed through a megaphone. "You are surrounded. Release the hostages and surrender immediately." Volkov's face contorted with rage as she realized the trap that had been laid. "This is impossible. We had intelligence on every federal agency." "But not on us," said a familiar voice behind Maya. She turned to see Adrian limping toward them, blood soaking through his shirt but very much alive. Behind him walked Deputy Director Harrison, flanked by a team Maya had never seen before. "Agent Reeves," Harrison said formally. "I apologize for the deception, but we needed Volkov to believe her operation was succeeding. Agent Cross has been working undercover for us for the past 2 years." Maya stared at Adrian, understanding dawning slowly. "Everything you told me about being forced to work for them was mostly true, except I volunteered for the assignment." Adrian's smile was pained, but genuine. "I'm sorry I couldn't tell you earlier. We weren't sure how deep the corruption went in your agency." Volkov raised her pistol one last time, aiming at Maya's head. "If I cannot complete my mission, at least I can eliminate the witnesses." The shot that rang out across the pier didn't come from Volkov's gun. Vincent Torino lowered his own weapon, smoke curling from the barrel. "My daughter was one of those children you trafficked," he said quietly to Volkov's still form. "I've been hunting you for 3 years." 6 months later, Maya sat in a coffee shop in Portland, reading a newspaper article about the largest human trafficking bust in international history. 27 children had been rescued, including her sister Jessica. Volkov's organization had been dismantled completely. The bell above the coffee shop door chimed, and Maya looked up to see Adrian walking toward her table. His left arm was still in a sling, but his smile was the first genuinely happy expression she'd seen from him. "How's the new identity treating you?" asked, sliding into the seat across from her. "Sarah Mitchell is settling in nicely," Maya replied, "though I miss the excitement of federal law enforcement. I might know of an opening with the International Crimes Tribunal. The pay is better, the travel is extensive, and your partner would be devastatingly handsome." Maya laughed despite herself. "My partner. If you're interested." Adrian reached across the table and took her hand. "We work well together. Once we stop lying to each other." Maya studied his face, seeing past the scars and secrets to the man who had sacrificed everything to save children he'd never met, who had been willing to die so she and Jessica could live, who had spent 2 years becoming someone he hated so he could honor his sister's memory. "One condition," Maya said finally. "Name it. It's no more deceptions, no more lies, and no more elaborate undercover operations that involve fake deaths and mysterious phone calls." Adrian's laugh was rich and warm, filling the small coffee shop with something Maya had thought she'd lost forever. "Hope. Deal," he said, lifting their joined hands to brush a kiss across her knuckles. "Though I should probably mention that our first assignment involves infiltrating an arms dealer's yacht party in Monaco." Maya groaned, but she was smiling. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow. I already packed for both of us." "Of course you did." Outside the coffee shop window, snow began to fall on the quiet Portland street. Maya watched the flakes spiral down like tiny miracles, each one unique and beautiful and perfectly imperfect. Like the life she was building with a man who had shown her that sometimes the greatest courage came from learning to trust again. They had work to do, justice to serve, and a world to make safer for children like the ones they'd helped rescue. But for now, in this moment, Maya allowed herself to simply be happy. The past was ashes, the future was unwritten, and for the first time in years, that felt like exactly where she was supposed to be. The end.